Another foundational topic that we're going to see quite a bit is what it means to be a polynomial. It may seem like an intimidating word, but very straightforward. In fact, we've been dealing with polynomials this entire term so far. We just haven't been calling that. The definition in our book, a polynomial is a monomial or a sum of monomials. Which then poses the question, what on earth is a monomial? Well, a monomial, think of the very first thing we did in class, in the notes, when we talked about what it meant to be a term, that 3x to the 5th power, when we had the coefficient 3, the base of x, and the exponent of 5, that was a monomial. In fact, I even want to talk about when we graphed that linear equation, 2x plus 3, we made a table, we looked at it in mx plus b, we graphed that a couple different ways. That is what we call a binomial. Just like a bicycle has 2 wheels, a binomial has 2 monomials, even though that 2x, coefficient of 2, base of x, if I even want to look, it does have an exponent of 1. The 3, we're going to name it later, is a constant. It's kind of a coefficient. It is like if I had an x to the 0 power, which x to the 0 would be a 1. It's just non-existent. That's a binomial, 2 terms. Let's even combine them. 3x to the 5th plus 2x plus 3. This is what we call a trinomial. A trinomial, just like a tricycle, has 3 wheels. Triceratops has 3 horns. 3x to the 5th, one term. 2x, a second term. Plus 3, a third term. These are all examples of polynomials. Now, anything more than 3 we would just call a polynomial. We don't have terms for quadrinomials or pentanomials. But we're going to be talking about monomials, binomials, and trinomials quite a bit, especially next week. We're going to be talking about factoring. We're going to be talking about a product of binomials. The GCF is a monomial. We're going to be tossing these words around a lot, but don't be intimidated by them. All they are is just terms we've been dealing with all semester so far. When we look at, in a very extensive 3x to the 5th plus 9x to the 4th plus 9x squared minus x plus 13, to give some definitions, this is a large polynomial. Yeah, it is a monomial. We are summing a bunch of monomials together, but some definitions that we want to look at here. That 5. Notice how we have this in order of what's called descending power. Descending means to count down or to go down. Powers mean my exponents. Look at my exponents count down. 5, 4. Even though I don't have 3, totally fine. We just skip it. 2, it does have an exponent of 1. And just like we even said back here, that could be looked at as x to the 0 power, which would just be 1, which would just make that 13 because it's 13 times 1. But again, the exponents count down. The powers count down. The largest power is what's called the degree of the polynomial. That degree is going to tell us a lot about the graphs later on when we get into the graphing. That 3 is a coefficient, just like the 9 is a coefficient, that 9 is a coefficient. This has a -1 as a coefficient. Those are all coefficients, but when it's in order of descending power, or at any given time, this is what's called the leading coefficient. The leading coefficient isn't always necessarily what's in front. The leading coefficient is what's paired up with the degree of the polynomial. So these were out of order. Say this 3x to the 5th were sitting here in the middle. That would still be the leading. I wouldn't all of a sudden then have a 9 as the leading coefficient. Even though it's out of order, what I would want to do is put it in order of descending power first, and then I would look at what is my degree, my biggest exponent, and what is the leading coefficient, that they always come together. Another big definition, that number that has no variable, or the variable to the 0 power if we want to look at it, that's what's called the constant. The constant is going to kind of play a big role too when we look at some of our graphing later and some of those other things. The leading coefficient will too. But you're going to hear us refer to what is the degree, what is the constant, what is the leading coefficient. It's good to get used to some of these vocabulary terms early in this unit.